Hey guys, I'm Randy.
And I'm Daniel.
We're two lifelong friends and musicians, but when we're not playing gigs, we like to talk games.
And today on the Gaming Gig Podcast, we're talking about Palworld.
Alright man, it seems like Palworld has come out of nowhere. Almost. I mean, we knew about the game, but we didn't expect it to become this phenomenon that it has.
Yes, I would like to go on record saying that it has been a highly anticipated game for me for about 2 years now. I've been excited when I remembered it existed for about 2 years. But did I expect the world to become a Palworld? No, I didn't.
It really doesn't seem like there was no hype really building into this game. Mm-hmm. It just came out and then all of a sudden it was huge.
Yes.
For whatever reason. I mean, it was kind of like the perfect storm.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, heck, it has broken all kinds of records. It became the second game in the history of Steam to get over 2 million concurrent players.
That's crazy.
Which is wild. So if you're one of those people who think you're just going to write off Palworld, you're like, it's just a trend. It's just like some little thing. It's a blip on the radar. No, my friends, it is not.
I mean, it's a big old blip.
Yeah.
If it's a blip on the radar, it's big.
I'm not saying it's not going to die out. Because it very well could die out, and it could die out quickly. And we're going to talk about that today. It's going to be one of our main things we talk about.
For sure.
It could definitely do that. But to say that it's not important or that this is just some little thing that we're not even going to remember in a few months or a year, that's not true.
Yeah, no, it's not. And it really did just materialize. It's like one day they dropped a trailer and they were like, hey, in a couple days, we're going to have early access. Mm-hmm. And then they did, and everybody downloaded it.
Yeah. I mean, I think the fact that this game has been riddled with controversy really helps.
Oh, yeah. Bad press is good press.
Oh, yeah, totally. But they've sold, as we know right now, 8 million copies at least. Mm-hmm. It seems like Pocket Pear, which I think that's
Pocket
the name
Pear.
Of it. Pocket Pear. That's the name of the developer who put out the Palworld. They have been updating via Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. X, I guess, is the technical name.
It's X now. It's weird, but it's X now. Thanks, Elon.
Every time they passed 1 million copies sold, they would update and let us know that they've hit another million. And the last one they put out was 8 million copies, and that was in the first 6 days. And the last update they gave us was January 24th. That's Wednesday. So it's been a number of days, and they haven't said 9 million yet. So I'm guessing that it hasn't sold 9 million copies yet, but maybe it has, and they just haven't updated us.
Maybe. I mean, it's definitely exceeding everyone's expectations, and the weird thing is that it seems like people are mostly enjoying it too. Mm-hmm. Like, not only is it selling like hotcakes, but it seems overall people say it's good.
Yeah, it has very positive reviews on Steam. It's not overwhelmingly positive, but still very positive. Mm-hmm. And it isn't slowing down. In fact, I looked and it hit its 2 million, but I checked this morning to see what, where it was at in terms of on the Steam charts, what its current player count was, and it was close to 2 million this morning. Mm-hmm. And it just at a random time, it was like 1.8 million. So it's crazy. Not like the game has died off. It still has it's the number one game being played right now on Steam by a long shot. The only game that has ever even had more people playing it on Steam was PUBG.
Right, back when it was a paid game.
And I don't know if you realize, but PUBG is a pretty, influential game. I'm not saying people still play it a whole lot anymore.
I mean, it had legs, though.
It definitely had legs.
It had legs. I mean, big old honking legs. Mm-hmm. And I did just check, and yeah, you're right. I was kind of surprised Palworld wasn't overwhelmingly positive, but it's very positive. So 94% of user reviews are positive. So, it's a little janky. It's an early access game. Let's be honest, it can be a little derivative. Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about a bunch of different things. We're going to talk about one, we're going to say, is Palworld any good? We're going to get some comments and read some stuff about that. Mm-hmm. We're going to be going through, obviously the controversy. Got some things to say about that. And then finally, we're going to end with, will Palworld, does it have legs? Will it die off? Mm-hmm. Those sorts of things.
Right. And is it bipedal? Is it quadrupedal?
Or does it just not have legs at all?
Is it tripedal?
Is it eel-like?
Ooh.
Yeah.
That gave me the heebie-jeebies.
I'm good at doing that. I'm good at giving people the heebie-jeebies.
That's a fact.
All right. So the way this podcast works, guys, if you're new around here, the way it works is we put out polls on the main Gaming Gig channel. We take those polls and we take the comments from those polls. We feature them here on the podcast. We talk about it, give our reactions, all that stuff.
That's right. And if you want to get your comment read and you're really serious about it, you might want to join our Discord server because that's where we go first.
Yes, indeed. Okay, so our first poll we had today was, have you played Palworld? And I put this poll out 5 days ago. So the number has definitely gone up since then.
For sure.
But at the time of the poll, 13% of people said they had played Palworld, and 87% of people said they hadn't.
Yeah, and it's not even that small of a sample size. We got 4.3 thousand votes on this, so
yeah,
that's a fairly significant number.
I think that it's a fairly significant number of people who said they haven't played it.
That's
87%. Yeah, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, that shocks me because clearly a ton of people are playing this game.
Yeah.
So why aren't y'all?
I saw other content creators. I think John over at Spawnwave put out the exact same poll. And his numbers were even worse, I think, in terms of people who had played. I think it was more like, don't quote me on this, but I want to say it was like 7 or 8% of people who have played it.
So who's playing it then?
I don't know. A lot of people are playing it.
If it's not the people who watch, gaming YouTube.
Well, I think that it has gone over into a casual audience.
Being on Game Pass helps that. Of course, we've just spent all this time talking about Steam, but...
Well, yeah, I think that probably the bulk of people are playing it on Steam, not Game Pass. But I think that does help.
It definitely
does. One, the fact that it's not a top dollar game, $25 with the 10% discount that they were offering. I think that has now ended, or maybe today's the last day.
I think yeah.
I think that has ended. But it being a cheaper game definitely helps a lot. One, it is a fairly easy game to pick up if you've haven't played survival games. It's one of the more simplistic survival games that you can play. And then it's got the Pokemon thing going on,
Okay, he said it. He said the P word. Yeah. I mean, there's no lie that it's definitely feeding on a little bit of a nostalgia, need, I think, almost that some people are feeling at this point. Like, because people... I don't think the most recent Pokemon games have been overwhelmingly positive. So I think people are trying to use this to scratch that itch, and whether or not they are, that might be a little subjective or objective.
Objective. Yeah.
Objective.
So, obviously the game takes a lot of elements from other games. In fact, we have a comment here from Evil Moon who said, it's surprisingly addicting, borrows lots of elements from other games, but it's oddly satisfying and well put together. Still needs a bit of work for sure, but it's promising. And it definitely takes a lot of elements from other games.
Yes. I mean, clearly it's got the Pokemon thing. People say it's got a lot of Ark survival. I never played that game, but Randy played a little bit, and I can see why people would say that. Some people say it's Ark with Pokemon instead of Ark with dinosaurs. It's also got a lot from like Breath of the Wild, the newer 3D Zelda games. It borrows a lot of the sound effects.
I think that...
It's got a paraglider.
Yeah, there are a couple
It's got climbing.
Yeah, really jank climbing.
But it's there.
I mean, it's there. Like, it definitely does borrow some things from there.
100%.
I would say it borrows its art style a lot from, say Fortnite.
Definitely.
It looks very Fortnite.
And when you're mining your materials, I mean, it feels very Fortnite.
Yeah, it feels very Fortnite.
Yeah.
And, some people would say that it maybe borrows more than it has any sort of original material to offer. It mostly is just borrows from other things and presents it as a new package. But
yeah.
I mean, that's what a lot of games do.
Yes.
They may do it a little more covertly. They may not as blatantly do it as Palworld has.
Right.
But I mean, do people even care? Apparently not.
I don't think they do. And I think, we just described like 4 games that it's like drawn heavily from. I'm sure we could list more if we tried. A lot could go wrong with that. With them saying, oh, we're going to make a mashup of Ark, Pokemon, Fortnite, and new Zelda games. A lot could go wrong with that, and this game could suck. But kudos to them for at least knowing what to pull from each. Well, and it and seemingly putting together a pretty good package.
Well, I think you kind of brought up something there. I mean, that brings the question of, is the game any good? Is Palworld even a decent game? Obviously we had a comment saying it was surprisingly addictive, and I agree. I think that is the main thing it has going for it, in my opinion, is that it is a surprisingly addictive game. I don't know that I think it's a surprisingly good game, but it is one of those games that you can sit down and play.
Yeah.
And then like an hour and a half, 2 hours have gone by and you felt like you've barely played at all. Is that a sign of a good game? Maybe. I mean, I don't know.
I don't think it's a sign of a bad game.
No, totally. You don't get bored with it.
I mean, we've said it a couple times, but there's clearly jank. But it's also clearly early access. And I'm hoping that they take some of this money that they're raking in and throw it back towards development and improve on the jank. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, you're right. It's not like blowing my socks off with like, this is the greatest thing I've ever played, but it is fun and it is good at passing the time. And it's got a good loop. I mean, that's what games like that have. You know, it has got a really good loop.
Yeah, the survival genre is really good at doing that. And I think that they, you know, has that like simulation thing in it.
Yes.
That simulation aspect. And I find that those games, simulation survival games, are time sinks. They just are really good at being time sinks.
Yes.
And, you know, because it's a cheaper game, you have this time sink style game, you feel like you're really getting your money's worth for it immediately. Whereas some games you only play for a few hours and they're over, or you know, or you feel bored after a few hours.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. And I also think this survival, like I haven't played much survival stuff. I played some Subnautica, and I liked it a lot. But those games seem really like immersive to me. You know, they kind of suck me in. And I think that's another reason that I can sink some hours into those games. I just like, I mean, and it's not even necessarily like the hunger or the cold and hot you got to man. It's just a kind of a combination of it all, the day and night cycle, the exploration, like it just sucks me in.
Yep. No, totally. Now, there is a flip side to this coin, though. You know, we have a comment from Quiet Chase. Hit us with that comment.
Old Quiet Chase loudly exclaims, "Mediocre game, new toy syndrome." And recency bias is real. That's true.
Oh, it's totally real. Yeah. I mean, like, when a game's hot and new, people like it a lot. And when it gets a little older, you might start to see some of the cracks.
For sure. I think, I mean, I'll be the first to admit that I'm very susceptible to recency bias. But I have fun while I'm doing it, so is it even bad? You know, like, it is a game. But I see cracks in this already, for sure.
Oh, totally.
But it's early access, and we got to keep that in mind. You know, the devs have laid out a little bit of a roadmap, and I'm hoping that they just polish it until they get, you know, till the climbing's not janky and all the other things.
Yeah, like the UI isn't covering up other elements.
The UI needs some work.
Yeah, there are things that need to be done with the game.
Yeah.
And I hope that this isn't under the guise of early access. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like some games, you know, they put it out and they put it out as an early access title because they're not confident in the game and they're afraid they're going to get a lot of backlash if it doesn't go out as an early access game.
Right.
So they put it out saying, oh, it's early access. And that maybe gives them the opportunity to improve upon it and make it better or not.
Yeah, and I think this developer has a little bit of a history of that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so, that kind of worries me a little bit, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. But I do think that there is some recency bias, but the fact that it hasn't died off in the first week is a good sign. The fact that it still has close to 2 million players as of this morning playing it, that's a good sign.
Wasn't it number 1 on Twitch, too?
It was number 1 on Twitch behind Just Chatting.
Behind Just Chatting. Well, so that's number 1.
Yeah. It was, I mean, it may not be there now.
Recommended for me.
Yeah.
Viewers, high to lowest. So it's number 6.
It's number 6 right now on Twitch.
Yeah.
So it was, when I checked the other day, it was number 2 behind Just Chatting.
Grand Theft Auto 5 is number 4, by the way.
Grand Theft Auto 5 is
That's
always,
amazing.
It's because of the Grand Theft Auto 5 online.
I know.
That game is always in the top 5, continuously.
That is great.
Yeah, it is wild. So it's doing well on Twitch. It does seem to be dropping on Twitch charts in terms of people watching it. It may be that viewers aren't as interested as they were a few days ago, but still, that's kind of to be expected.
Well, it's probably a lot of people in the same boat as I was. I went to Twitch to watch it to see if I wanted it. You know,
true.
I went and watched some streams just to see if I wanted to spend my $26. So,
all right, let's talk about the Pokemon thing, man. The question is Palworld a Pokemon ripoff? Is it just that blatant?
You're asking me?
I'm posing the question.
Okay. To the universe.
To the universe, right. I think that obviously the answer is both yes, and then once you play the game, it's like yes, but no.
Agreed.
Which is strange.
Yes. It's yes, but no. In the sense that it is a monster capturing game, and you do even throw, let's be honest, Pokeballs.
You do.
But beyond that, the mechanics of the Pokemon pals, I think that's very telling right there. The mechanics of the pals it is so different than a Pokemon game.
Yeah.
Like vastly different. So, they may look like some Pokemon, and we're going to talk about that. And the way you capture them may be similar, but what you do with them is not what you do in Pokemon.
Right. The gameplay loop is obviously very far removed, with some exceptions, from a Pokemon game.
Yeah.
Besides the fact that it has Pokemon-like creatures running around, and you do catch them in a somewhat similar way. Not really. You throw the Pokeball, and it has a % chance of catching it. Very similar to Pokemon in that way. Mm-hmm. But in terms of how you battle, it's more real time. We've seen that in some newer Pokemon games, but
have we? Real time?
Yeah, you can have your Pokemon auto battle in the newest Pokemon games in Scarlet and Violet. You haven't played that game.
You say it's an auto battle.
Yeah, it's like you just throw your Pokemon out and they fight it without you having to do anything, much like the way Palworld does it. You throw your Pokemon out and it just fights it one-on-one.
But you can't, you yourself still can't interact with the Pokemon, right?
No. Okay. No. It's a little different, but it's you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm trying to say there are some similarities to the most recent Pokemon game, and even some similarities to say Arceus, where you're kind of running around throwing Pokeballs.
Yeah,
but it's not exactly. I mean, the vast majority of the gameplay loop is nothing like Pokemon.
Yes, agreed.
But the pals are a lot like Pokemon.
They are, aren't they?
Maybe questionably. We have a comment here from Gecko1993 who said, "I smell a lawsuit from Nintendo. That's what I care about. That's what I care more about, truth be told."
So he's following it for the drama. He wants the T, the Nintendo.
The Nintendo. I'm sorry, Gecko. I don't think there's going to be a lawsuit. I mean, I won't necessarily be surprised if there's something, but I kind of will be surprised.
Yeah, I don't think it would have got this far. If Nintendo really had any ground to stand on.
Yeah.
If they had a dog in this fight and that dog would hunt, they would have already sicked it on Palworld.
They would have. Palworld's been around for a year. I mean, in terms of we knowing about it, we've seen what the designs of the characters have looked like for literal years now. I think it was over 2 years ago we got the second trailer for it. So I mean, it's probably been close to 3 years that we've known about Palworld and seen the designs of the pals and how they're direct ripoffs of so many. You can almost look at every single pal and be like, that's oh, I know exactly what Pokemon that one's trying to be.
Yeah.
Almost every single one. It's very unoriginal. It
is. It's very unoriginal. And some people say, maybe even some nefarious tactics might have been employed. Yeah. I'm not saying that I think that.
Yeah, let's get into that.
Yeah.
So the designs were all created by one person.
Yes.
Which is a little sus because it's that's a lot for one person to come up with all of these designs.
Yep, 100 pals.
Yeah. So the question is were there assets pulled directly from Pokemon games? I've seen some things online where they say the wire models, the wireframe models of the Pokemon were 1-to-1. They've just basically changed the textures on the outside of them or changed the colors or, changed the features on the outside. But the actual structure of it on some of these are basically the exact same or minimally changed.
But didn't it come out that the person who was making those claims actually went in and resized?
Yeah, they rescaled them so that they would fit. So there was some manipulation going on there. I still think that there could be an argument to be made there either way because it's not saying that you couldn't do that if you were wanting to alter it a little bit.
Yeah, but that is that's a little dirty on the person making the claims part.
Yeah,
to
totally,
not disclose that.
Yeah, totally.
So, if you're trying to take moral high ground here, kind of shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah,
if you're doing that. Because I read that and I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to worry about that anymore because two wrongs don't make a wronger.
Yeah.
No,
I agree. I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that they didn't. There's been no proof that they've taken the assets from Pokemon and then altered them maybe minimally or, majorly and then created these new pals. They could have done that.
They could have.
But there's been no definitive proof. There's been little bits of okay, that's kind of interesting. I'll look into that. But nothing that's obvious. There's not been that one thing that's oh yeah, they definitely did it.
Right. Yeah. And then the other claim is that they used generative AI. to make these pals.
To at least come up with maybe the designs of the pals. Like they asked AI to combine existing Pokemon to create these
I would like
pals.
a combination of an Electabuzz and a Mewtwo. I would like a Lucario statue.
Yeah.
If you built a statue of Palworld,
yeah.
it's a Lucario statue. It's so funny.
Yeah, that particular Pokemon is the the Anubis one, or it's just like Lucario. I mean,
And this generative AI thing, it comes from a few places, but I think a couple of the main reasons people are yelling generative AI is because, one, the CEO of the company has made some AI, some positive AI, I want to look into this kind of comments in the past.
no, he created an AI game.
Well, that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, they made a game that literally uses generative AI.
Yeah.
And what was it called? Like art AI or something?
Something like that,
I think
yeah.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that game was like, the whole point of it was, you were using AI. It didn't seem like they were hiding it, so, does a history of using AI a nefarious act make? I don't think necessarily.
No, and I don't know that there's even anything. Say that they did use generative AI to come up with these PAL models. They say like, okay, create me a PAL that looks like this Pokemon, but is just far off enough to be the great value brand.
Yeah.
And then, I move on from that. Okay, what if they did? I don't even know that it really matters, besides the fact that I know Steam requires that if you used AI during the development of the game, you have to have it labeled as such so that people buying the game know that.
Yep.
And it's not labeled that way.
It's not labeled that way. So if it should be labeled that way and they didn't, that's smelly. That's a little stinky.
Yeah. I just don't even know. I mean, it's like, I don't even understand exactly why Steam requires that you label it as having used AI during the creation of it, because over the past year, we have seen AI become such an integral part of the work process for so many people on just everyday things, from checking the way you worded a sentence to, coming up with ideas, just like brainstorming sessions. Like people use AI for so much stuff.
And it's only going to continue.
Yeah, it's only going to get more and more enveloped and kind of incorporated into our work process. At what point do we have to be like, at what point does everyone have to be saying they used AI to do anything?
I think eventually we won't, because like you said, it's going to be assumed that at some point you used AI.
Yeah.
But right now it's such a hot topic, and there are people that are there are still people that are like very anti-AI.
Yeah.
You and I have pretty much embraced it.
Yeah, I mean, like I use AI to, to do brainstorming sessions. I'll use it if I want to do a generative image for a poll, something like that. Or if I want it to mock up an idea for a thumbnail so that I can get ideas of how I might frame something.
Right.
Like you can use it for so many interesting things.
You can.
It just feels a little weird to say like you have to show when your product uses AI.
Yeah.
Because that'd be kind of like saying that, newspapers need to mark at the top of each article when they've used spell check. Like that just like feels a little weird to me. Like, why would they need to do that?
And I think eventually it'll be that same level.
Right.
It'll be that same thing. I mean, companies are building AI into everything now. Like,
Everything.
The new Samsung Galaxy phone just dropped. I don't know if you read anything about it, but it's just loaded down with AI. It's just leaking out of its charging ports. There's so much AI in that thing, and people are loving it.
Yeah.
So like, where's the incentive to not? We're going to continue to go down this path, and it's going to become such a big part of our world that we're going to basically become the machines.
You got worked up over that. You got worked up.
I always tell my kids in class, and this is my last tangent on this. We'll be graphing a line. I'm a math teacher. We'll be graphing a line by hand, right? It'll be a little curvy, and I'll say, "Don't worry. Your line, nobody expects your line to be exactly perfect. We're not computers." And then I look at them really serious and I'll say, "Yet." And I do feel that way.
Well, to go back to the Pokemon thing, a lot of people are hoping that maybe this is kind of the kick in the pants that Pokemon needs to be like, you need to change your formula.
Yeah.
We have a comment here from I Hate Nutella. How can you hate Nutella, by the way?
I hate X Nutella. Oh. No, it's like a lie.
I don't hate Nutella.
Yeah, I don't hate Nutella.
All right, well, hit us with that comment, Daniel.
Well, I don't hate Nutella said, Palworld is what Legends Arceus should have been. Not to mention it has its own formula that's more innovative than Game Freak ever did in 25 years. It's both amazing and sad all at the same time.
And maybe that's what Palworld will be. Maybe it will be that kick in the pants that not Nintendo, I guess, because really, Pokemon is its own thing. It just is majority owned by Nintendo, or like
they're one and the same yet different.
Yeah, they're their own company.
It's a weird thing.
But Game Freak, really has. I would say that they have tried to change their formula around in the Switch generation. We've seen Legends Arceus. That's as an example. We've seen Scarlet and Violet really honestly try to change things, but it seems minimal, and a lot of people say it's too little, too late.
Yeah. I hope that it is a little bit of a catalyst for Game Freak. I know they would never, ever, ever, ever admit it, and that's fine. But I'll basically say, like, yes, they have tried to change their formula, but the stuff I saw, I didn't play Scarlet and Violet as a statement. Like, I felt morally that I wasn't going to give them my money, and I didn't, and I don't regret it. But I think it had way more jank than what we're seeing from this early access Palworld.
It depends on
you played the game, so
yeah. I mean, like in terms of the gameplay loop of Scarlet and Violet, I loved those games. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, I didn't have any fun playing that.
You've always said you liked
it. I
it.
loved that game. I really had a good time. Visually, it was a nightmare. There were definitely bugs and glitches like all through the game. The UI was better.
I'm sure the UI was better. Yeah. The frame rate probably wasn't.
No, the frame rate was terrible. I mean, it was also playing on Switch, so it's like we don't know what Palworld would look like on Switch because we don't have it on Switch, so that you can't exactly 1-to-1 compare it.
True. You see that paw sticking under the door?
I do. That is hilarious. Daniel's cat's reaching in. It's like, oh, I want to be part of the podcast.
He does. He wants to be in here so bad. But I'll basically say like Game Freak has, until they just win it back, they've basically lost me. Like, they really need to change something up, and I don't want to have been lost, but they are such a big company. They have so much money, it's ridiculous. They don't have any excuse.
Yeah,
a game like this from a smaller team, I don't know how small, but smaller than Game Freak.
It's a small team. We'd have to use our indie rubric to find out if they're truly indie, but I think they might be.
That might be fun to do.
I think they might be.
But a game like that's whether it's honest or not, but it's in early access, they have more grounds to have a little jank. I'm sorry, but it's not a 1-to-1. Like, I just hold Game Freak a little more accountable. I
think they should be held accountable for sure. So I'm kind of hoping that maybe Palworld, maybe it will die off. And we'll talk more about that in a second. Maybe it will die off, but maybe it will also be that like catalyst to say like maybe we'll see Pokemon games start to adopt it. Kind of like we brought up PUBG earlier. That game, it did eventually die off, but people do still play it.
They definitely do.
But it's not near what it was. But what it did was kind of like start this whole genre of gaming that has now this battle royale thing that has now taken over the world.
Yeah.
And what we saw Fortnite come out of that, and it became one of the games that has the most legs out of any game we've ever seen.
It's also currently number 1 on Twitch, above Just Chatting. Just saying.
Right.
And PUBG Mobile PUBG has died off, but PUBG Mobile was nominated for Esports Game of the Year at the Game Awards. So, legs the game has.
Yeah. So that brings us to the conversation of, will Palworld die off or will it continue to be popular? We put out a poll. Hit us with the poll.
At 27%, people said it's going to remain popular, and at 73%, they said it will die off quickly. I think the quickly part is the important part of that choice.
Yeah.
Because it's going to die.
I mean, like all games do, right?
But these people are saying it's going to drop,
Yeah. Well, we got a comment here from Majorly Devilish who said, I feel like this depends on the devs. If they keep working and updating it, it could remain popular. We saw that with if you would have asked me in 2017 or whatever year it was that Fortnite ballooned and became this huge thing, I would have told you that I thought it was going to die off.
For sure.
Yet here we are, and it's still like this morning, #1 on Twitch. And
they've added all these different modes and like,
yes,
it's like a hub now. It's not even just a battle royale game.
Yep.
It didn't even start as a battle royale game.
No, it didn't. But what we've seen is that Epic has continued to support that game so much. We get constant updates. And I think that is desperately what Palworld needs. It needs new stuff constantly to keep the life in that game.
Yes.
Because although it's not a traditional live service game, it is a pseudo live service game.
Yes, and it could definitely adopt the live service model. And I think it would benefit from it.
It might. It might. And, but it takes games being constantly have new things to keep players involved. And I'm afraid what's going to happen with Palworld if they don't do that, if they just make the game, like if they just polish it up and that's it, I don't think that's going to be enough. Because I think by the time they polished it up and give a full release, get it out of early access, everyone who wants to play it have already played it.
That's a good point. It's breaking all these records and hitting all these huge milestones in early access. So what's going to happen when they eventually release it? Is anybody going to give a crap?
Right.
Because it feels like it's released.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it definitely does. This isn't like a Baldur's Gate 3 situation where it came out in early access and relatively, like people played it, but it wasn't until the full release that it was really widely adopted. I think it coming to console made a big difference.
Yeah.
But, this isn't that way. It feels like it's out.
It does.
If it wasn't breaking records, if it was a small game, it wouldn't feel that way. But the fact that everyone is playing it.
Yeah. It's a weird situation, and it's hard to compare it to something because it is so, it's literally record setting. So I just don't know that we've seen that before.
No. Well, we haven't seen it. We haven't seen it exactly like this. No. So there's nothing to base it on. All I know is that market saturation is totally a thing. So,
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Get your market overly saturated. Where's your water going to go?
Exactly. You can't be overly saturated with all that water.
All right. We got us another comment here from Squally Cactus. Squally said it has a shot. It's not likely that it will make it, but it's not impossible. Way to sit the fence there, Squally.
Not likely, but possible. Honestly, I know that is a little bit fence sitting, and I've definitely sat on my fair share of fences on this podcast.
I've seen this dude sit on so many fences, I cannot even tell you. His britches. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, my britches got lots of holes from the fence sitting, but honestly, it's true. I don't think it's likely that it's going to have like tons and tons of legs. I can already tell from my time playing it that I could see myself enjoying it for a little while, but I do think that I will get burnout on it and have very little interest in going back to it unless they find a way to continuously have a reason for me to come back to it.
Yeah, I'm not done with it yet. I'm not close to done with it yet. I want to keep playing it, but there's a lot of games I'm playing right now, so it's slow goings. But I don't think it's likely that it becomes the next Fortnite. I don't. But if they play their cards right, it could happen, and I'm rooting for them because I think it's cool.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's likely.
And I think that it's interesting that we're the situation where it's like they have kind of changed people's mentality of like what a game needs to be in terms of creativity and originality, because this game lacks, I think, both creativity and originality, but somehow it comes together to present a product that is entertaining and fun to play.
And unlike I can't think of another game that has all that stuff, Right. So I can think of other games that have some of that stuff.
Totally.
So is there complete lack of uniqueness and originality? Is it resulting in something that is unique and original?
Well, that has been a creative argument that we've been having, maybe for all time.
It's very philosophical.
Yeah, it's very philosophical. Speaking of philosophical, we have a comment here from Rainbow Hawk who said, twice as bright, half as long.
Randy, you've often been quoted as saying that you burn too bright.
I do say that. That's one of my things that I say.
This is about you, man.
Yeah.
But there's something to be said.
There is something to be said. I think that there are exceptions to that.
There is.
For sure.
There is. There are. There be.
There be. But, I do think that when games are this hyped and this controversial, like there's a good chance. I would say it's a majority chance that it will, when it drops, when it dies, it's going to die hard and it's going to die quick. Mm-hmm. But maybe it won't.
Maybe it won't. I'm rooting for him. Like I said, only time's going to tell. I mean, as you can tell, I think we kind of waffle on this game, depending on what aspect we're talking about. But overall, I think it's a fun game, and I hope it does well.
I think it's a fun game. I think it's more interesting in terms of like the impact it's had on the gaming culture and industry. That's what makes me more interested in the game than the actual gameplay. Because if I played the game in a vacuum without knowing that it had created all these waves and that it had like blown up and it was very controversial, I think I would play the game and be like, yeah, it's kind of a cool game, but it's not, it's definitely not going to be the best game you play this year, but it's going to be an entertaining romp and you give it a try. Maybe an 8 out of 10, 7 out of 10 sort of game. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and now how would you feel if you played it in a true vacuum and you didn't know what Pokemon was?
Ooh, that's really interesting. Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way for me to know that because I can't erase Pokemon from my brain.
Well, I was hoping you could.
But I mean, who knows? Maybe it will make it. And I also am rooting for it because I like the fact that it's kind of shaking up the gaming industry in a way that's like, look, guys, there are games out there that can come out of nowhere, hit the scene, and become these phenomenons, like these huge deals.
Yeah.
And, and they're drawing heavy inspiration from things like Pokemon, from like Ark, taking things from, like you said, from Breath of the Wild. It's taking these aspects and saying like, guys, your stuff isn't safe. Games can come out and just blatantly copy you and become the second most popular game ever on Steam.
Mm-hmm. It has definitely exceeded expectations as a whole, and it's gotten... it has grown immensely from its original moniker of Pokemon with Guns.
Yeah, we never talked about Pokemon with Guns at one time.
No.
But that's what people have called it. And I think the Pokemon with Guns thing is like, obviously that's sensational. And people are like, Pokemon with Guns?
And it's what hooked me when I originally saw the trailer.
I played for hours and hours and there's not a gun in sight.
Well, the people have shot me with guns, but I don't have a gun yet.
Right, yeah. I've seen NPCs with guns.
Yeah.
But I think that actually getting a gun takes many hours. I mean, it is a slow-paced game, but there's always something to do.
I've got a Lionel bow.
You got a Lionel bow?
Yeah, it shoots 3 arrows at once and only uses one. But it doesn't spread them horizontally, it spreads them vertically.
Oh, okay. That's hilarious. That is hilarious.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. Well, we've reached the last segment of the podcast, which is our 3 for Dale Club. But before we move into the 3 for Dale Club, if you have anything to say about Palworld, leave it in a comment. Let us know what you think about it. And then, do you think it's going to die?
Do you think it's going to live?
I think it's going to live.
But yeah, let us know what you think about Palworld. And while you're there, if you made it to the end of the podcast, why don't you just join our 3 for Dale Club while you're at it?
Yeah, our 3 for Dale Club is the way we say thank you for making it all the way to the end and hanging out with us. We do that by, if you leave a comment, just say whatever you want, but in the comment, leave the secret code phrase 3 for Dale.
That's right. That tells us you made it. You stuck with us, and we know it wasn't easy. So we're going to start shouting out last week's now. We're starting out with Bobbity, who said, I'm okay with 2024 being the slow year after the banger 2023 was. This year's hype is getting done early for me with Tekken 8, Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, but we'll see what else catches my attention. So these comments are, generally talking about our last few weeks, so you know.
Yeah, last podcast was about 2023, like what we had in store for gaming. And, of course, you never know when you're going to have a surprise game come out of nowhere like Palworld. So it could happen again later on in the year. We could get a real, this year could be just full of surprise bangers.
And it really happened all this week because I think last episode I even said, we're going to get Palworld. And we were both like, yeah, we'll see.
No, last week when we I think you're thinking the week before that. Because last week was last Sunday. Palworld had been out for a few days at that point.
Okay, must have been a couple weeks ago. I was talking, and I was like, we're going to get Palworld. Is it going to be any good? And we were like, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
And here we are.
And here we are.
Anyway, go ahead.
All right, next person is D18, who said, random thought, but I selfishly hope they drop the next Switch with the big game being a 3D Donkey Kong in the style of Mario Odyssey.
Not selfish.
That
perfectly
would
reasonable.
Be awesome.
We would all love that. We're afraid that Donkey Kong has been murdered and hidden in Seth Rogen's closet. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm with you. Omaha. Next up, we got Laninator. Now, Laninator is a man of few words. Mm-hmm. He says a lot. He streams Sea of Thieves with us. He's a bro.
He plays Baldur's Gate with us.
He plays Baldur's Gate with us. But, he didn't say anything particularly noteworthy here, so we're just going to shout him out. What's up, Laninator?
He left his 3 for Dale for us. All right. Next, we got Tom Derry, who said, I think 2023 will stand the test of time as the renaissance of gaming. Maybe the year that ushers in who knows what's coming up next.
Renaissance of gaming. Tom Derry, Renaissance man. Next up, we got Landon Stallings. Now, some call him Dale himself. It's been rumored that they call him Dale in a hushed tone when nobody's listening. Mm-hmm. But he's always here for us. And he thinks Indiana Jones chose to be first person for the sole fact that it helps distinguish itself from Tomb Raider and Uncharted. And he hopes it's a win for Xbox because we know they sure as hell need it.
Yeah. I don't know if they did that to distinguish themselves from Tomb Raider and Uncharted. I mean, it definitely makes it different. So
it does.
I don't know if that was a deliberate choice or the fact that this developer just makes first-person games and that's just what they stick with. So
combo, maybe.
Maybe it was just a little bit of luck, or maybe they're like, hey, it'll also benefit. Well, we won't look like Uncharted.
Right.
Well, who knows?
Good thinking.
All right, next. We got Morris Dennison, who said, amazing podcast as always, guys. One of my favorite places to get my gaming news. Well, thank you.
Heck yeah. Thanks so much, man, for the little pat on the back. And rounding us out here, we have Kitaclysm, who said, I think there is potential for this year to stand toe-to-toe with 2023 for Dale, but the year is young, so only time will tell. And take notes from Kit, because that was very clever.
That was very clever. I always like it when people incorporate 3 for Dale in a very clever way in their comment. That's one of my favorite things. All right, y'all. That's it for today. We'll see you next time. Until next time, I'm Randy.
Which makes me Daniel.
And this has been Gaming Gig.
Peace out.